I think everybody needs therapy.
Welcome to the 5th ever episode of the Life Play podcast. I'm your host, CEO and founder of the Life Play, Tyler Seward. Today we have a very special guest and podcast for you all, where this is the first time we have someone firsthand going through the process of transitioning outside of their sport. But that is after their illustrious career with many accomplishments. So many accomplishments, I had to bring a paper today. So today we have Kelsie Campbell.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tyler.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
So as I read those accomplishments, and every time you hear those, what goes through your mind? How does that make you feel?
I think it makes me feel proud, obviously, but it kind of feels like it's not really about me. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Obviously, it's really cool, and I don't know. It's just, it almost feels like out of body, right? Like, especially right now, going through this process of transitioning out, like, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about my career and everything I've achieved, and I don't know, it just feels kind of weird to hear them out loud. It's a lot to be proud of, but when you're going through this transition, it can be difficult to not think like, okay, what else could I have done, rather than, okay, that's actually really an exhaustive list of accomplishments. But no, like, I don't think anybody can take those away from me, and yeah, I'm really proud of myself for achieving, many of those things, some more than others, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be proud of, because these are accomplishments that lots of swimmers and just people in general can't say they achieved.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
definitely something to be proud of. So I want to go back in time, as I always do on the podcast. When did you start swimming?
So I started swimming when I was, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4, I think. It's quite a funny story, actually. I was on vacation with my family, and I jumped in a swimming pool without armbands or anything. My mum told me to wait, but I didn't, which is in keeping with my personality. So yeah, I jumped in the pool and then obviously started to drown because I couldn't swim. And then my mum was like, okay, let's get you into swimming lessons. So that's kind of how I started. But I have an older sister who was pretty good at swimming when she was younger too. So I just kind of followed in her footsteps and joined a club. She moved on to other sports, but I carried on swimming. So that's kind of how I started, really because of my sister, to be honest.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
So when did you begin to really start taking it serious?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I did a lot of sports growing up, like a lot. I did everything, like basketball, netball, football, trampolining. I danced as well quite seriously. And I actually carried on dancing until I was about 15 or 16. And then that's kind of where swimming commitments became a lot. And I was dancing at school as well, but I just couldn't really balance the two. So that's kind of where I made the decision to carry on with swimming and kind of pursued that path. So yeah, I think more than anything, I wish I could have carried on doing other sports, but the commitment for swimming was just so much that I had to make a decision. So not sure whether, I think it was the right one. I don't know.
I think it was the right one.
I don't know. I don't know. I think you make the best decision you can at the time, and that was the decision I wanted to make. And so, yeah, it was a good decision, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a good decision because, especially with all these accomplishments, and we're going to get into it later, but you probably have learned so much throughout your whole journey as a swimmer.
Yeah.
In life, in sports, and lots of things. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think it was definitely the right choice.
I think so. I'm a big believer in, like, everything happens for a reason, so I think that, for whatever reason, I was supposed to pick this path, which is really corny, but I think I was, so, yeah.
Definitely. And in high school, when you were thinking about going to college and things like that, how did that whole college process go? Were you like a really good swimmer in high school, just beating everybody easily? How was that?
Yeah, so, I mean, the setup is slightly different in England. We don't really have like an extensive high school system where people do sports within school. Everything really tends to be outside of school, so you'll join a club by your own means, by your parents kind of like signing you up and taking you. So all the competitions I did were kind of like regional or national competitions. But But I mean, honestly, like my career with swimming has been really like up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's, I mean, like many careers, I'm not going to say that mine's unique in that, but like with a lot of challenges. So even from a young age, like when I was in high school, I struggled with injuries. Like I was swimming really well when I was about 14, 15, even to 16. And then I went through like a really big plateau where I really didn't improve for quite a few years. I struggled a lot with injuries. And if I'm completely honest, when I was looking to come to college, I was actually thinking about quitting. Like I think even made a verbal commitment to FIU, and I came on a trip and still wasn't even sure if I was going to carry on swimming or not. I was not really in a good place with it. Like I said, I'd not really improved for quite a few years. So, I mean, that kind of really makes my experience at FIU even more valuable, because I did continue, well, I started to improve once I got here again, for many reasons, which we can get into later. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting process. I think for me, it was either come to the US and carry on swimming, or I would have probably stayed in the UK and not swam anymore. So yeah, I'm really happy and I'm appreciative of this experience, because it really gave me another opportunity to like carry on my career. And since I came to FIU, I've achieved some really cool stuff that I wouldn't have done if I wouldn't have come here. So yeah.
So what was the determining factor that allowed you to not quit?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I was kind of excited again with the idea of coming to a new country, having like a team, you know, having a different place to train, different coaching setup. I'd heard a lot of people had great experiences. By people, I mean like teammates that had decided to go from the UK and come to the US. So I kind of like was excited for that. Obviously, I knew I was going to come to Miami too. I thought it was a great opportunity for me to live here. So yeah, I think it was just, for me, it was the excitement and the hope that maybe I would be able to find the love that I lost for swimming. So I think that was really kind of the determining factor. I took a chance, really. It wasn't like I jumped in with both feet and was like, yeah, I'm so ready for this and I can't wait. But, you know, I quite quickly changed my opinion and my feeling towards swimming, you know, after being at FIU for not too long.
Mm-hmm. And I would apologize to the audience, because I completely forgot that Kelsie was from England. So let's because I know Kelsie. So as I'm here, I forgot about her accent. I forgot about everything.
That's funny.
So let's talk about that for a little bit. What part of England are you from?
I am from Nottingham. It's in the Midlands, so it's like about 3 hours north of London. I'm trying to think. Oh, I mean, like, people probably don't know Nottingham, right? Do you know? Have you heard of it?
I hope we have some international viewers. So,
okay.
Some people may know.
Yeah, well, it's where Robin Hood is from. I always use that. But that's it. Yeah, I'm from Nottingham.
Robin Hood, like the story?
Yeah, like, you know, stole from the rich, give to the poor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Robin Hood. He's from Nottingham. Sheriff of Nottingham, all that stuff. Yeah, so I'm from Nottingham. Born and raised there. But my dad is Jamaican. He was born in Jamaica, moved to England when he was quite young with his family. But my mum is British, so I'm mixed.
Okay.
British, Jamaican.
That's interesting. For sure. And I haven't been to the UK.
You should go.
So I definitely will go.
Yeah.
I'll be in Italy in this June.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Europe.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah. It's Europe, you know? But for those that haven't been there, what's kind of the differences between the UK and America in terms of just like the regular culture and also sports culture?
Yeah, I think in terms of regular culture, at least because I'm surrounded by internationals a lot, like on my team, there are obviously many cultural differences, but I think that we're not as far apart as like maybe other countries might be. We're still both very, very much like westernized cultures. So there's not a ton of cultural differences, but there are just differences in day-to-day life. Like, I don't know, like the way people interact, like what's accepted, what's not. I don't know. I feel like I can't really think off the top of my head like what's really different about it. I don't know, British people are more polite, I think. Like, they'll apologise for everything for no reason. But then they're also not very upfront. I feel like Americans tend to be a little bit more upfront than British people. Mm-hmm. But in terms of sport, yeah, I guess we just don't really have like the facilities that the US has, or kind of the setup in general. Like, I don't know, like you'll go to a college and like they have these amazing sports facilities and they're just like decked out and they have all the gear and everything, but like in England it doesn't really happen. Like maybe if it's like a pro team or like there's a special training facility, whereas like if you're at high school, you're training in your gym, like it's not anything bougie. So I think that would be, but for some reason we do really well at sports in general in the UK, so I don't really know what we do that's so special, but it's, you know, for a small place, like the US is huge, like I think the UK would fit inside of Florida, so I don't really know.
Actually?
Yeah, it's really not very big at all. Like, it's really small. I think, I wouldn't want to say how long it takes to get from top to bottom, but like, a 3-hour drive for us is long. Yeah. Like, it takes me, probably from where I live, like 6 hours to get to Scotland or something. It's not really that long, which is like all the way at the top of England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, kind of. But yeah, England is not so different to the US, to be honest. But in some ways it is, I guess.
I had Matches Lavino, who is a soccer player / football player, whichever country you're from.
Football.
You know, so he talked about the differences in sports. Is kind of back in France, it's more about getting better and the team, and it's not really so pressed on winning and losing.
Yeah.
But he said as he came to America and then college, things like that, everything was winning. Everything was about winning.
Interesting.
Winning.
Yeah.
And it's not like, yes, they want you to get better, but they want you to get better maybe outside of practices and things like that on your own.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they just want you to do good. They don't care how it happens.
How it happens. Well, you know, I think obviously like Matthias is in a team sport, so I think it's slightly different. But I mean, that's a good point. I just like made me think a little bit about some of the differences. So like in terms of swimming, in terms of the team, and I think you'll find this if you ask like swimmers from Europe, it's very individual in Europe in general. I'm not sure about the US, or like, and when I say this, I mean like there's like the college system, and then there's like if you're swimming at a club or outside as a pro, whatever. Like in England, everything is about like you as the person. Like, yes, you will compete as part of a team, and maybe like at nationals, it's not really a very big emphasis on it, but there are like team points and stuff, like at nationals, things like that. Like you could be like the team, but they don't really, no one really cares about that, to be honest. Especially because there's certain hubs in England where like all of the best, if you're like a certain age, like you're 18, there's probably like one of 5 places that you're going to go to, like universities wise. So it wouldn't really be fair for there to be a point system because everybody's going to the same place. But anyway, yeah, it's just like everything's about you as the person, you as the swimmer. Whereas when I came here, there's a huge emphasis on the team. Like everything is about the team. Like, you know, even to the point where your individual choices are kind of governed by what's good for the team. Which is, there's pros and cons to it. Like I know at FIU, sometimes that aspect got me through difficult times, but sometimes it was a little bit too much. Like it was like, okay, like I'm doing something for the team that's actually putting my health or like me at risk. And I mean, again, there were still my personal choices. I guess like what I'm referring to is like sometimes like I was hurt, like my shoulder was in a bad place, but like I pulled myself out of that to compete. Like even for me down to this last season, like I've been hurt the entire season. But for me, it was like I made a commitment to the team, to my coaches to come back and to do this. So I found a way to make it work. Like I found a way to modify training. I found a way to make it work, you know. Whereas if I was swimming in England, I probably would have quit like a long time ago because I was swimming for myself. So I'm like, why would I be doing this to my body? So yeah, there's huge differences in that. Like here, swimming, at least at FIU, is a team sport. Like it's very much like everything is for the team kind of thing. So yeah.
So would you say that times where you're swimming through an injury, or at times maybe doing things that can hurt you physically or that you just may not want to do, would you say that can get overwhelming at times as a swimmer or just as a person in general?
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming because I mean, no one wants to like damage their body, right? Like, you only get one body, so I think it's mentally just tough. It's like coming to terms with the fact that, I mean, in one aspect that you might be hurting yourself, but another that you're not able to like train or perform to the best of your ability because you're hurt. And it's also just like the volume that we do as swimmers. It's like you don't have a respite like ever. It's like doubles every day, and it's like a day seems like super long to a swimmer because you cram so much within that day. So, you know, like you're hurt, taking a week out is like not an option. Like it's like you take one practice out and then hopefully you're going to feel better the next day, which obviously doesn't always happen. So I don't know though, I kind of figured out my boundaries a little bit, especially this past year, which kind of helped to deal with it. I think the physical boundaries was the easy thing for me to determine, but then it's dealing with it mentally. It's like, okay, I know I'm hurting right now and it's too much for me to push, but I've got to then deal with that mentally, like, okay, I'm skipping this practice or I'm not getting in like the work that I need to because of this. Like, it's that balance between understanding, yeah, this is what I need, but there might be a consequence to this, you know, later on in terms of my performance or something. So yeah, I mean, I will hands down say, and I'd be willing to argue with anybody, that swimming is like one of the mentally toughest sports out there. And not necessarily because we're doing anything particularly crazy. Like, I mean, our training is crazy, don't get me wrong, but just like the consistency required, like you're waking up at 5:30 every day pretty much, and you're training 9-10 times a week. So there's just no time for your brain to switch off. Like you switch off Saturday after practice, Sunday, and then you're back on again Monday morning. So yeah, I mean, I think it's probably one of the toughest sports out there for sure.
That's interesting that you said that, because Jacey Hinton that we had on the second episode, she said the same thing. She said swimming is 90% mental.
Yeah, I would agree with her.
Yeah.
Jacey, my girl, she knows what's up. No, for real. Like it's for me, the reason that I started to improve when I came to FIU is because my mental improved. I mean, I had my best season was not this season, the season before, really. I say best season in terms of, I think you can judge that by a few things, but in terms of times and performance was a 2021 to 2022 season, and I was in the best mental state. Like I just like come out of a breakup, like I was doing a lot of things that were for me, like I was doing things that were making me happy, and my performance increased and improved because of that. So I mean, I don't know that was completely it. I think I had been building up for a few years, like coming back from injury, and it kind of just everything came to fruition. But I think the biggest thing for me that season, and even this season as well, was just my mental. Like I started doing things for me, things that made me happy outside of the pool. So then when I came to the pool, I could just give it everything, and I wasn't beating myself up too much if I didn't swim too well. I mean, maybe my coach, if he watches this, he's like, I don't think you're remembering this right. Because there was definitely ups and downs, right? Like I remember halfway through the 2021-2022 season, like I went to him and I was like, yeah, I'm done. And he was like, what do you mean? Like it was halfway through the season. He was like, he literally said to me, you're talking crazy. Like, go home. Like he kicked me out. He said, go home. And so maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But like for the most part, I remember like being happy and feeling content. So I think that I would agree with Jacey. I think that it's a lot of mental. Like it's like you've got to wake up at 5:30 and be like, this is shit. Like I don't want to wake up, but I'm going to because I'm working towards this goal or whatever.
Yeah. So you mentioned some like mental techniques. You said you did things that made you happy outside of the pool. Yeah. That helped you inside of the pool.
I'm not sure we want to list them right now. No, I'm kidding. We can.
You also mentioned that you knew that there was a greater goal when you woke up at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah. What's crazy is Jacey said the same exact thing, waking up at 5:30. I'm like, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So what other mental techniques for those swimmers out there, just athletes in general, did you do or have learned throughout your whole process that helped you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously it's going to be unique to everybody, but I do think that goal setting to some extent is really valuable. And I don't know, I think that for me, there's obviously like textbooks or guidance to how you do things, but like these kind of things, for them to be effective, they have to be individualized to you. Like, for example, this season, the coaches had everybody write like a letter, basically. It was like about a month before our conference, and then asked them to open the letter up the night before they raced, to read it, it could be whatever they wanted, you know, something along the lines of like, you know, tomorrow you're going to race, like, put everything out. I don't know what people wrote. I have no idea. I didn't read people's, but I didn't do it, right? I mean, initially it was because like I couldn't think of anything. But then afterwards I reflected, and I just don't think that was something that would have worked for me. You know, maybe for somebody else, like hearing their own words at a moment where they were less stressed and, you know, they were excited versus like the night before you're competing. I think that could be really valuable to somebody. But for me, I was like, I don't need to hear my own words. Like, I already know what I need to do. So for me, like, that wasn't valuable. But somebody else, obviously, it might be. But for me, I think, and I go back to it, goal setting was really important. For example, in the 2021-2022 season, I had like a clear time goal in mind. I don't always recommend having time goals. And honestly, throughout the season, I didn't really even think about that time goal too much. It was something that I had set at the beginning of the season. I came back to it mid-season, and then at the end, obviously came back to it again. But having time goals is always a good thing in terms of like, okay, like this is what I'm working towards. This is when I achieve this is what I'll be happy with. But also just kind of like process goals really to get you through the day to day. And I think the way I did that was really just setting small goals each practice that like, even if maybe I didn't swim the times or swim a practice the way I wanted to, that I would come out of it and feel like, okay, I still achieved something. So I guess what that looked like for me was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, but Jacey is making sense to her for sure. But like, I want to be like 15 off every wall in this pace set. Like that would be like a goal for me. And I'd be like, maybe I'm not swimming the time I want to swim, but I'm staying under to 15 on every wall. And that worked out for me in the end, like, you know. So I think it's like, for me, process goals is a really important thing. I think another thing, I'm trying to think what else I would do that would help me, like that I can structure in a way that's helpful. I think just outside of the pool, just trying to find ways to detach completely.
Definitely.
Not, you know, at the weekends, like I know in England I was very cautious, like, oh my God, on a Saturday, like I can't do this because I'm going to be tired for Monday morning. Like, okay, I'm not recommending this to all athletes, like do your recovery, like look after yourself. But like, if you want to go do something on Saturday, go do it. Like go detach yourself, like go completely reset so that on Monday you're ready to go again. Like for me, no matter what I did on Saturday, I would go have fun, whatever. I would come in on Monday morning ready to go because even though my body may not be fully rested, my brain was. So I could push myself to my limit, whatever that would be on that day. So I think it was just like being kinder to myself and doing to a certain extent, like within reason, like just going and having fun and detaching mentally.
Yeah. Like you said, with reason, because too much of anything is not good. You can drink too much water and drown yourself.
No, facts. And that even... don't do that. Don't do that. No, I even remember there was a time where, like, I had a great relationship. I still do have a great relationship with my coach. And I remember in the 2021-2022 season, you know, I was, full discretion, I was going out a lot. Like, I was abusing my body, but I was swimming so well. Like, I was doing whatever on the weekend and then coming in on Monday morning and like swimming so fast for some reason. But at the time, like I think my coach was he was realizing like she's not looking after herself kind of thing. And, you know, we got into it at one of the practices and he was like, I can't control what you do on the weekend. Like, you know, he was really upset with me and he kind of made that known. And I took a step back and I was like, you know what, like even though I argue back, like he's right. Like everything has to be within reason. Like, yes, you can have fun, but like at the end of the day, I'm a D1 athlete and I have goals in mind. So it's about finding the balance and also, I think, being kind to yourself, like understanding that you can make mistakes and that you don't need to be perfect all the time, but you need to be kind of aware of like what you're doing and if that's working towards the goals that you want, kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And everything is individual and everything is based on that person, right? Like you said, you could go out and still do well on Mondays because your brain is there. Maybe your body isn't fully there, but your brain is there.
Right.
But for some people, they could go out on that Saturday and they're just their body and mind is completely off on that Monday.
Yeah.
So everything, like you said, with the with like just the sports psychology techniques and all those, is individual. Like you said, you had time goals. For some people, time goals could cause anxiety. Then when they don't hit those goals, then they're down on themselves, depressed, things like that.
Right.
So that being said, right, I want to go into when you were starting to swim a part of the Jamaican national team, right? So first, I want to speak about how do you choose, because you're from the UK, so yes, your father's from Jamaica, but I always wondered, is it like you can kind of choose which country you want to represent? How does that work?
Yeah, so kind of like when I was a junior, kind of like 13, 14, 15 in England, like I was on a lot of like the development programs for like the GB team, Great Britain team, and you know, like things were looking very promising for me. Then, like as I said, like when I got to like 16 up, like I started to plateau a little bit, and it was particularly because of injury. Like my injury was, you know, I was out of the water for a while. It wasn't good. So for me, I just saw it as an opportunity to represent like on an international stage. I mean, there's a lot of like there's several people that do it. Like I know a lot of people who swim for smaller islands or smaller nations. Like, you know, they probably have dual citizenship. For me, like obviously there was some people who were kind of like, oh, well, you know, she was born here. Like, why is she coming to compete for Jamaica? But for me, the Jamaican culture has always been a big part of my life from when I grew up. Like, I've always been surrounded by Jamaicans. I've always been surrounded by the culture, like the food, the music, everything. So it's always been a part of me. So it's quite natural to do it. And honestly, I got like a really quite nice reception. Like the first competition I did, I think I was 16 or 17. I don't know how old I was, but the first competition I did for Jamaica, like I was like welcomed with warm arms. Like everybody loved me. Like it was a great experience. But to answer your question, it's just something that you can choose. I wouldn't be able to go back and represent GB right now. I don't believe, at least not in swimming. I think like there's rules about that, but I was happy with making the decision. Like for me, I hadn't had great experiences swimming in England in general anyway. So I was happy with it. And I think it was the best decision I made, really. Like I made friends for life. I got to swim at some really cool competitions, and it was a good decision, I think, to me. Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good.
And when you started competing for the Jamaican national team, how was it competing at those large meets when you're representing a whole country?
Yeah.
And also, I would say, were you nervous going into it, or were you just super excited for the opportunity?
I think I was nervous, but more than anything, I think I was excited. Actually, my first competition, I had like something really not ideal happen. I traveled all the way to Martinique, which is like a small island in the Caribbean. It's a French island. And I mean, I was still kind of like learning the ropes. I traveled there on my own, and I don't know why, but for some reason I booked the flight the day before I competed, which is in hindsight, a terrible idea, awful idea. The rest of the guys were just traveling from Jamaica, so it was a quick flight for them, or the US. Anyway, my flight was delayed, and so I didn't get there till like 11 p.m. and I was racing the next morning. So I think that kind of took some of the nerves away because I was so exhausted. But from what I remember, I think I swam okay, and I think I was just running on adrenaline. Like for me, and this has been a theme throughout my whole life really, is like I don't like losing. I'm very competitive. But I also will do things for the team. Like I'm very team oriented. So for me it was like, hey, I'm representing Jamaica. Like they're counting on me. Like I can't swim bad. What do you mean? Like I don't care how I'm feeling. I'm like, let's go. So I think that was just my mindset, and I remember swimming pretty well at that meet. So I think, I don't know. I guess the moral of that story is your mind can be really powerful if you can just feed it the right stuff. Yeah, your body can do more than you think. I think. Yeah. I
say this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm an avid gym bro, avid gym goer.
Gym bro. Yeah.
So when I go with someone else, right? and say it's their first time going to the gym, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always have to teach them, like, your body can do so much more than you think it can.
Oh, yeah.
Like, our bodies are actual machines.
For real.
Like, real life machines.
Yeah.
And you know that, you definitely know that, like you said, the amount of swimming that you guys have to do just for practice.
Yeah.
And then you get into the meet and it's easy.
Mm.
But you put in all that work, all those hours before, literally breaking your body down just to be good. And it's like that with anything, with lifting, with basketball, with football. The more you put into your sport, the more you'll get out of it. And yeah, the fact that your body can do way more than you think that's something that I definitely live by, and I hope lots of people can just learn from, because it's the truth.
No, it really is. Like, I genuinely believe that. Like, I just think back to, like, I always do this, but, like, think back to, like, if you're, like, fighting for survival, right? Like, what, you need to eat, you're just gonna, like, I'm tired? No, like, get up and go get your food. Like,
there's like a switch. There's levels. Also, David Goggins. You know who David Goggins is? David Goggins is like an ex-Navy SEAL, things like that. He's crazy. He does all types of things, runs marathons with, like, broken legs and stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy,
That's
right?
I don't recommend that.
No. So when I read his book, he talks about that, because especially in running, there's levels, right? It's like you can be going, you're motivated and all that, but then your body's telling you to stop. But when your body's telling you to stop, your body physically can keep going. But you just have to get past that part mentally. To kick up that next notch and get to that next level. Like you mentioned, the survival mode, that's pretty much what it is. It's like your adrenaline and everything, it's not thinking about, oh, my body hurts. It's like, I need to get this task done.
No, facts. Like, I live by this. Like, for real. I didn't realize other people thought like this. No, it's like, for real. Like, even, like, in my jobs now, like, I hear people, like, I teach a class at FIU, and
Professor Campbell?
Listen, we're out here. But anyway, like, we teach at 9 a.m. and, like, people are like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, they come in, like, look, I'm sensitive. Everybody has, like, stuff going on in their life that we don't know about. But it's a mindset. Like, I'm showing up, I'm teaching this class after I already swam for 2 hours.
Exactly. You don't want to be there.
Like, I want to be in my bed.
Exactly.
But I'm here with you. It's just a mindset thing. And I don't want to trivialize that and say that it's easy to just switch your mindset, but I think it's definitely something that you can train.
It takes practice.
Right.
Training.
Like anything.
Yeah.
Like, your mind is to be trained like your body.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think we went off topic, but...
Oh, not at all. I think we went to a great topic. You talked about training the mind,
yes,
right?
I did.
The Life Play will be a place where you can train your mind.
There we go then.
And get a lot better in your sport and just be more happy in life.
There we go then.
So that's
right on topic.
Exactly, right on topic. Perfect. Because that's where we're getting to. Like, in the near future, I want to start a course for athletes and just regular people in general to start to form those mindsets and form those habits and those and just get that practice in. Because without practicing it and without, like, knowing the right techniques and just, like, psychological techniques, you won't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's easy to say, oh, you need to switch on, get that killer mentality.
Yeah.
Like, some people say the mama mentality, stuff like that. But it's like, how? The Life Play, we'll have that course for you. In the future, I will be sports psychologist. We can sit down, I'll help you out, things like that.
I love that.
Yeah. When I talked to Jacey, right, she said that at the University of Miami, they had sports psychologists on staff, on campus, right? Is that the case with FIU or no?
Yeah, I don't know if they're necessarily within the athletics department. I think we do hire somebody that comes in. I'm not sure.
They're like contractors.
I think that we did have one doctor under contract. I'm not sure if he still does work with athletics, but there are, like, services. I know that if you go through the trainers at FIU, like, you can access a specific psychologist at CAPS. So I know that there are services available. I've, like, obviously been at FIU for 6 years, and in the last couple of years there's been a much more avid effort to kind of increase the services that are kind of offered through athletics. So they're trying. For
You're
sure.
trying.
Yeah.
You're trying. Well, I believe that all sports teams, or it doesn't even really, it should get to the point where all sports teams have a sports psychologist on staff.
Oh, 100%.
Where, say, somebody comes out the pool and runs their worst race ever, and now they're completely depressed, they're like, I'm a failure. They can go right over to that sports psychologist and talk to them. So that doesn't trickle over into the next meet, trickle over into the next practice, because that can make all the difference between winning and losing in the team aspect as well as in the individual aspect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think our team, like the swim and dive team, we do a good job of like trying to support and encourage like mental techniques like going into competitions. It's not, I'm not sure how other teams operate, but I think we do a good job of like not just ignoring that there's going to be obstacles or there's going to be ups and downs at meets. Like going into this conference meet, you know, we talked about that quite a lot, like what to expect, how we want to try and conduct ourselves. I think the only thing about, and this is again something that's different to swimming kind of individually or in the UK versus here, is that obviously there's a big emphasis on the team, and so as part of that it's kind of like trying to stay robust in your emotions, which I think is good, right? Like you don't want to get too high with the highs and you don't want to get too low with the lows, but I think that can be a little bit damaging sometimes, especially for, I don't know, for somebody like me. I think it for a while I tried to suppress things, like to the point where, okay, like I just had a bad swim and it's not like what, like I'm trying to think, there was a competition, it was conference in 2020 or 2021, and I got disqualified in my best event, and I was doubling up that day on events, so about 20 minutes after I got disqualified, I had to go and race another swim. So I got really emotional when I got out of the pool. I think like this was a real breakthrough swim for me as well. I think I was going in like seeded second into the final if I didn't get disqualified. And to push these emotions down, you're racing in 20 minutes, let's go, okay? What do you do as an athlete? You switch on, you're like, it's go time again, shelve that and let's go. But I don't think people talk about how damaging that can be in terms of, yeah, it's great that in that moment you were professional and you conducted yourself in a way that meant that you could go and perform again, but did you ever take the time to deal with those emotions? And I know that I didn't in that moment, because I swam my next race, that one was fine, then I had to do the final for that, then I had another day of racing the next day, and then came back, had a couple of weeks off, and then I was back to, actually in those couple of weeks I got COVID as well, which was not good, so I was dealing with that, and then straight after that I got back to training. That blew up for me in about June or July, because I ended up racing the whole season, actually swam pretty well. But I never dealt with what happened at conference. Like that was a big blow for me to be disqualified in my best event and not even have a second to deal with it mentally. So I think it's not only important, like, yes, are you conducting yourself in a professional way? Are you finding ways to keep pushing, keep, you know, being professional, but are you actually dealing with those emotions, or are you just pushing them down? So I think it all comes back to having that self-awareness and understanding like where you are mentally, what works, what doesn't work for you, and whether you're actually like dealing with your emotions in an effective way or not. Which is something that I'm not saying I'm perfect at it now, but I think that it's something that I'm kind of more aware of, you know, now in my stage of life.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good that you didn't allow that disqualification to affect your next race, right? But like you said, it's also not good to neglect your emotions in the long run.
Right.
So one sports psychology technique that you could have done, or for any of the athletes out there, when this does happen, you can reflect after the whole meet, right? Maybe in a journal, in your notes, whatever works for you individually on paper, whatever. You reflect, and like you said, see where you're at emotionally and get that self-awareness. Okay, I got disqualified in this meet. How am I feeling now about myself? What am I going to do differently next time going into the next meet? And just to get those emotions out of your body, because like you said, you can neglect those emotions and then they just build up inside you, which in the long run will cause even more problems. So yeah, that's one thing.
No, definitely. I think that's something that I should have done at the time, but I guess it's also then being aware that you have those emotions, that there's something down there. And I think that reflection, if you feel emotions come up when you reflect, then you probably didn't deal with it right. Because I'm thinking about conference. Like, conference happened for me 2 weeks ago. Thinking about that meet.
Say that again. Start completely over. Say what you just said again.
Conference?
No. Go back a little more.
Oh, what did I say?
You said when you feel those feelings arise.
Okay.
Talk about that, because that's
perfect. Where I'm going. Yeah,
that's real psychology.
I think when you reflect on something, and if you feel certain emotions come up when you think about it, you probably didn't deal with it. Or I guess negative emotions come up rather than positive, you probably didn't deal with it. And I think that, kind of going back to what you said about, had I reflected fully after the meet, or reflected consciously, like not just like in passing, like sat down and said, how do I feel about this? I probably would have been like, I've not come to terms with it yet. And I guess like now I realize that, like now I'm thinking about conference that was 2 weeks ago. Like it wasn't necessarily my fastest meet ever, but I'm like thinking about it and I don't have any negative feelings or emotions, regrets, anything, like not a single thing, which is, first of all, is amazing, because I think it's very difficult to achieve that, especially when it's easy to look back on a meet where you succeeded or you felt like you succeeded and to feel happy, but to look back on a meet that maybe you didn't perform as well as like you have in the past, or as well as you might have wanted to, and to have nothing but positive feelings, that's something quite special. Obviously that's something you want to aspire to. So I think it's important, like you said, to look back, reflect, and be like, have I come to terms with what happened in this moment? And I think that goes for sports, but also in life as well.
See, that's very admirable that you even know that, right? Because what you just mentioned that's psychology. Like that's what therapists deal with. That's what therapists that's the importance of therapy, right? To touch on the moments and see how those moments make you feel, like those prior moments. And as you know, that when you talk about a moment and some negative feelings come about, maybe sadness, maybe anger, things like that, you know that that's an unresolved time, unresolved memory. And yes, lots of people can feel those feelings and not be, like you said, not be self-aware that those feelings are holding them back from being happy in the present moment. Right. So yeah, that's very admirable. How did you learn about that? Is that something that you learned in your own through your own experiences, or because most people don't know that. Yeah,
I mean, I've had a lot of therapy over the years, so maybe, shout out to my parents for paying for that, and shout out to FIU. But I mean, I think for me, if you really want to be happy in life and you want to achieve whatever it is, like most of the work's got to come from you, and it comes from being self-aware. So yeah, I mean, I joke about having therapy and stuff, but really one thing that I learned through like talking to people and having help is that everything comes from you 100%. Like, yes, you can have somebody to guide you to whatever it is you're trying to work on, or guide you through it, should I say. It comes from you 100%, and no one can give you the answers for yourself. Like, it's all about having self-awareness and working out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So I think I figured that one out on my own, really. It's like, you can't fully move on from something until you've closure with it, until you feel like you're in a good place with it. So for me, it's partly intuitive, but of course there's science to it. So it's intuitive if you take the time to like think about yourself and your feelings and stuff. So definitely. Yeah.
So you would say that therapy was helpful for you?
I would say, I mean, for me, like, it was kind of therapy, but when I was home, I worked with more of a life coach. Like, she was a qualified therapist, but she took more of a life coach perspective, which for me was, I think, a little bit more valuable, because she looked at things holistically. I think it's important that, and I talk with a lot of the girls on my team about this, if someone's a sports psychologist, obviously it's important to talk about aspects of your performance. And for some people, that's maybe all they need to get to the next level. When I say that, I think about, for example, like my sister. She's very sound, like, in terms of her sports psych and how she approaches things, but maybe there's just small things that she needs to tweak that maybe she hasn't fully taken the time to think about. So I think about her, and I think okay, maybe a sports psych might be valuable to her, but then I think about other people, I mean, even her as well, but sometimes more of a holistic approach is a little bit better. It's like, how is this aspect and this aspect of your life feeding into your performance? Because nothing's standalone, right? So, so talking to or working with the life coach was particularly helpful for me, because it helped me to identify parts of myself that were attached to swimming and parts of myself that were standalone. Because I think one thing that I've always struggled with, and a lot of swimmers do, I think athletes in general, is figuring out who Kelsie the person is and Kelsie the swimmer is, because the two are not the same, and my performance as a swimmer does not determine who I am as Kelsie. And I think, kind of going back to what you said about Matthias as well, like a lot of the time it's like, okay, you're not winning, you're not of value, or like you're not a good person or a good athlete, but that's not true at all. Like, you are still the person and the athlete. So I think finding the difference between the two and being able to separate them is something that's difficult. So that's kind of what the life coach helped me with a little bit. But I think, again, I said it earlier, but it's what works for you and what is going to help you as an individual. So if therapy is that, then do it. But I do also think that everyone should try. I think everybody needs therapy, honestly.
I think therapy should be like going to the dentist. I feel like
100%.
at the very minimum, once a year.
Yeah.
Just to get a check-in on how you're doing mentally.
Yeah.
That's it.
I agree. I think everybody, like, the world is an interesting place, and there's lots of good and lots of bad that's going on, like, in the world. I think every single person needs therapy. I'm not even gonna lie. I think that everybody is messed up in some kind of way. So I think I agree with that. Like,
yeah, everybody has their own pain. My one friend Jonah, he always says you can't invalidate pain. So even if somebody has trauma because their dog died when they were 5.
Right.
For some people, it's like, okay, my dad died when I was 5. But for that person whose dog died when they were 5,
that's painful.
It's painful for them too. So it's like, you can't invalidate pain, no matter what it is, you know. And I'm glad that you said that. For some people, they may need a sports psychologist. For some people, they may need a therapist or a life coach. You know, I see the value in both. That's why I want to get my master's in clinical psychology and then a PhD in sports psychology, because I feel like to be a sports psychologist, like I could just get a master's in sports psychology, but then I don't have the real background of being like a counseling psychologist. And like you said, that the life and the sports aspect always intertwines. Because you as an athlete, like, yes, you're an athlete, but yes, you're still a regular person. You still have a regular life. You still have regular traumas, regular problems. So it's like intertwining those both as a clinical psychologist and a sports psychologist is so beneficial, and that's why I'm going that route, and that's why my company's called The Life Play. The Life
You're so
Play,
smart.
Because it's about mixing things that you do in your regular life and the things that you do in your sport when you're playing, to really figure out like how to become the happiest in all of that.
And everything,
Yeah.
I like that. You're onto something.
Yeah.
The life play.
The Life Play. All right, Kelsie. So I want to talk about your final meet. Going into your final swim meet, how did you approach that?
That's a good question. How did I approach that? I mean, it wasn't really easy, really, to like go in with a certain mindset. I think I hadn't really been able to train fully like I wanted to this whole season. Kind of from the beginning, I was really stripped back in the beginning. I wasn't even swimming. I was just kicking pretty much the whole of fall. I kind of started to swim a little bit more towards the end. So kind of from that aspect, I didn't really know what to expect in terms of like my performance. I'd had some conversations with my coach leading into it, like I was a little bit upset and kind of like not really sure where his head was at and where my head was at, because I think for a while it was kind of like, okay, let's just try get through the season and be the best kind of support, or not support, but the best contribution, should I say, to the team. That was kind of the mindset for a really long time. And then Christmas came and we went to the training trip that we have, and I started to train more and better, and I was swimming decently. And so at that point I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm swimming quite well right now. Is that mindset changed? And I was even like training, and I felt like I wasn't really getting kind of the feedback or response that I want from my coach. And it wasn't personal at all. I think sometimes when you get in your own head, you're like, you can create like certain narratives or stories. But anyway, I sat down with him, and he was kind of like, no, like I'm on the same page as you. You've been swimming really well. I think you can still swim well at conference. So didn't really know really what to expect in terms of performance. But I think really going into the meet, I was just wanting to try and enjoy it the best I could, and however that looked. I didn't really know how it was going to look, but I wanted to enjoy it. So I think that was really my mindset going into it. And then kind of as the meet progressed, kind of after my first swim, I was like, okay, like I'm in good shape. Like that was a really nice swim. Then my second swim, I'm like, okay, this is where we're at. Like this is a real benchmark. It wasn't quite what I wanted it to be or where I was last year. And I was like, okay, I made it to the final. That's all that matters. And kind of from there, I realized, okay, you're in okay shape. Like you're swimming all right. Like you're making A finals. You're doing okay. So let's just make this about trying to enjoy it and trying to get as many points as you can for the team. So that's kind of, it kind of progressed into that as the meet went on. I came in with kind of not too many expectations, kind of hoping, okay, maybe I'm going to swim really well. You just never know. And then I was swimming okay. So I was like, okay, let's just try and make it to the final in the morning, and then try and be faster in the evening. That was kind of my my mindset really. And then just really giving to the team, like I didn't really train at all on backstroke this year. I didn't race it at all, but we didn't really have a sprint backstroker this year. We have a few, but they needed somebody, so I kind of knew that it would be a possibility that they would call upon me to do one of the relays. And I think this is kind of me going back to what I said earlier about like your brain or your mind is so powerful, because like I swam my best event in the final. I swam okay, wasn't really amazing or anything near what I did last year. But then my coach came up to me, he's like, hey, we need you for the relay. Like I need you to swim 100 back right now. Haven't swum 100 back the entire season. I haven't even done it in practice. Like I haven't done it once. I was like, okay, like the team needs me, so I'm going to do it. So kind of going off topic, but I think it's like that was my mindset was just like, I'm here for the team, I'm here to enjoy myself, this is my last chance. And I think that's kind of why I'm looking back now and I feel positive emotions, because even though I didn't swim the times that I maybe might have wanted to, I had goals and I achieved every single one of them. Like I laughed a lot, I had a lot of fun, I got a lot of points for the team, and I helped the team out a lot by just being selfless and kind of swimming what I was asked to. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like around the houses, back again, trying to make a point.
No, that's good. My next question is, why not pro? Would you say it's the money aspect? Would you say it's injuries? Would you say your heart's just not there for swimming anymore? Why not pro?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, if you want me to be completely candid with you, you want that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, candid, I'm good at honest. So I went to a competition this summer, which was the Commonwealth Games, a really big competition. It was actually held in England. And I went to this meet with really high hopes. I've been training decently well out here in Miami. Went to this meet. I mean, a lot of things that weren't quite ideal from a mental aspect happened while I was there. But I just didn't swim very well at all. Completely bombed. Was not ideal. And I kind of just went to this meet and I thought, okay, these were my goals. These are the times I wanted to achieve. Okay, had I achieved them? This is me doing self-reflection again. See, I like to do self-reflection. Did some self-reflection after the meet, and I said, okay, I had these time goals in mind that I wanted to achieve. Obviously, I was miles off them, nowhere near them. And I thought, okay, but what if I had achieved those? Would I be happy right now? And I sat there and I thought, I'm not even sure I would have been happy if I had achieved those. Like, if I'd achieved these time goals, I probably would have made like a semi-final, probably in the events that I qualified for, but semi-final at the most, wouldn't have made a final. And I was like, I'm putting in all these hours, and not everything is about the results, but I think it is important that as an athlete, you're honest with yourself, right? You're honest with what's realistic for you to achieve. And by realistic, I mean, you can dream and be like, okay, I want to drop 4 seconds in this, and maybe it is somewhat realistic. But you have to be able to look at your goals and be like, if I achieve that, I at least think I'm going to be happy. I mean, you don't know how you're going to feel, of course, in the moment, but if you can't sit there with your goals and be like, yeah, I'm going to be content with that, then what are you doing this for? Like, there's absolutely no point. So for me, I kind of just realized that I don't really like being a participant. Like, if I want to do a sport or do something, like, I want to be the best. Yeah. And that's just not really in the cards for me in swimming. Like, maybe earlier in my life it might have been, but with injuries and, you know, just talent levels and stuff, like, it's just not on the cards for me. So for me, I was just kind of over putting in all the hours and not feeling like I was achieving maybe what I wanted to. And that doesn't take away from anything I've achieved. Like, I'm still very proud of it, but like, I want to be like, if I'm going to an international, like, I want to be in the final, like, I want to be competing, and that's just not really very realistic. So yeah, that's kind of like why I made the decision in the end. I still want to carry on doing sports. Like, I'm not done with sports. Like, my body is still like ready to go. Like,
what aspects of your daily life as an athlete do you bring to your life now? Now that you're not swimming anymore, I know that you're going to the gym. I think you were at the gym 2 times yesterday.
So many people have commented on that. Yeah, I was. That was Maddie's fault though, because I went in the morning and then Maddie was there too by chance. Maddie's my friend, by the way, and Tyler's friend too. Yeah. That actually, he was Tyler's friend. She was Tyler's friend before she was my friend. Yeah. But now she's...
Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. But now she's more my friend than Tyler's friend. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm fighting for Maddie. But anyway, yeah, we were at the gym and then she was like, hey, do you want to go to the gym again? I was like, yeah. But I mean, I love being active. Like, I love working out. So for me, it's not a chore. But I think swimming has kind of just brought discipline to my life. Like, I still wake up, not at 5:30, definitely not, but I'm still waking up at like 7 in the morning, like working out and
Going
stuff.
Going
for a run. But the thing is that there's so much structure that comes with being on a team and being an athlete.
You're used to that.
I'm used to that. But then now when I work out, I do whatever I want. So it's a bit different. Like, if I want to run for 30 minutes, I'll run for 30 minutes. If I want to run for 5 minutes, I'll run, you know? Yeah. So much freedom. I don't know what to do with it all. I'm like, I joked about the other day, I'm like, one of my friends swiped up on my story and she's like, oh, like, she said the same thing. She was like, you're at the gym twice. Like, what the fuck? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I mean, it's good because I don't have anybody yelling at me, telling me I need to do this or this or this. So yeah, it's brought discipline to my life and structure, and I will always be active and I'll always be in shape.
Mm-hmm. So, like you said, you have to play the hand that you're dealt. Mm-hmm. So the hand that you're dealt at this moment is you're not swimming in your sport anymore, any of that. But as you mentioned, you're Professor Campbell. So Professor Campbell.
Right. I don't know if it goes that. You can just call me an instructor. I don't know about Professor.
Do they call you Professor Campbell?
I do get emails with Professor Campbell. Yeah. I don't really know how I feel about it though.
But look, let me get to
it. Makes me feel like a 40-year-old person.
Let me get to the
question.
Sorry.
Right.
So, what are your goals and what are your next steps just in life right now?
It's a great question. It's deep. My goals are, I mean, I'm still doing my master's right now, like I'm still studying.
Master's in what?
International business.
Okay.
But I just did that so I could carry on swimming, honestly. So yeah, I'm doing that right now, which is fun. And then I'm going to do my PhD too. So I applied for my PhD in public health.
Okay.
Yeah, so I applied for different concentrations at different places, but I want to like have a focus on minority health disparities and like health policy. So yeah, so I'm doing that, hopefully starting in fall. I just need to decide where I'm going to go. And then, yeah, I think right now I'm just working on kind of this transition out. I mentioned like kind of like I've been dealing with injuries, with an injury this season. So I'm just trying to work out lower body, like let my mind body, everything rest a little bit, and then go from there. Yeah.
Sounds good. Good. Well, sounds like you have a plan.
I do.
Sounds like you will be successful in whatever you do. So I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, Kelsie.
You're welcome.
As we mentioned, all these accomplishments, these are things that you'll never forget. These are things that you should be proud of. These are things that, like I said, you'll never forget. So,
like I said, you'll never. What if I do forget them? I'm probably gonna forget the CSCAA. What does it say? Scholar All American. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna remember that one.
I don't think you'll forget the Jamaican record holder.
I don't think so, unless somebody takes it.
Yeah.
Please, nobody take it.
They say records are meant to be broken.
They are meant to be broken.
But right now, yours hasn't been broken.
I hope not. Is somebody swimming right now? No, I'm kidding. There's a meet going on right now, actually. So
do you like pay attention to the meets?
No, not really. No.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe my teammates are swimming right now, so I probably will pay attention to this one. I care about this one. Yeah.
All right. So first off, I want to give you this hat.
Oh my God.
As my token of appreciation.
Thanks.
For coming on the podcast.
That's exciting. Do I need to put it on?
No. You don't
Okay, thanks.
You don't need to mess up your hair. You got nice curly hair. You don't need to mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for tuning into another episode of the Life Play Podcast. And remember, life is just a game. It's all about how you play it.